Hey, what's up, everybody? So today I'm going to be talking about how a lot of coaches end up burning out, and because of that, they never get to 50K per month. They might even have to go get a job, or they're stuck in that loop of 5 to 20K per month, but having to work like 12-hour days. So that's not ideal, obviously. And so I'm going to show you a different perspective on burnout, which you might not have seen before. And so I'm excited to share that with you. So if you want content like this to help you scale to 50K per month as a coach, go below and subscribe. And yeah, I try to post as much value as I can. So based on that, let's get into it. So what is this different perspective? Well, the perspective that I have is most people would burn out. Just think about like 12-hour days and being in the same place, right? And not making progress. And then that leading to burnout because you're not getting the proper compensation on the work you're putting in, and you're putting a lot of work in, sacrificing a lot, right? That is definitely the definition of burnout, and it is connected to what I'm saying. But more than that, what I want to share with you today is like how that actually shows up, right? What are the signs that that is happening, right? And a lot of times, like we create our own burnouts, right? We allow certain standards in our life, and because of that, that becomes our reality, right? Like we burn out, we burn ourselves out because we start accepting things and behaviors from ourselves that we weren't accepting before, right? And so our standards go down, and so our pride goes down, which kind of makes you speeds up the process towards burnout. So let's start with stage one. Okay, I break it down into three stages. It's three A's, so it sounds fun, and it's basically arrogance, annoyance, and avoidance. Okay, so let's start with arrogance. So the first stage is arrogance, and this is basically when coaches start cutting corners and making assumptions, right? So what does it look like, right? In the process of taking a sales call, they start assuming what the person is going to say, so they say it for them instead of letting the person speak for themselves. And they also take content for granted, right? So they don't work as hard to create valuable content that solves problems, and also delivery. They kind of just half-ass it, right? And this happens because this might be surprising, right? Like because like why is like usually arrogance comes when people are doing really well, right? Well, you'd be surprised because sometimes burnout happens because then we get stuck because we start acting this way, right? But also sometimes like when things are not working too well, and you just become arrogant about getting the same result every month, right? And your brain just tricks you into believing that you're doing well but you're not, and so you just start assuming and things like that, right? So that's basically the first stage is arrogance. Now the second stage is annoyance. So the transition from arrogance to annoyance goes from like, yeah, I'm really amazing at this, I'm assuming I know everything that's going to happen, to now being like, not only are you assuming, but now you're annoyed at people when certain things happen, like, oh, you didn't watch the video before the call, or they're harsh with employees and like patients and with clients as well, like, you don't understand this, like they're kind of like getting to a place where they lack patience, right, with the people throughout the whole process, right? And so the arrogance turns into annoyance. So it's like built on top of each other, right? You have arrogance, and then on top of that, become annoyed. There's an energy of annoyance on top of that, right? So they start classifying essential tasks as not worth their time anymore, right? Like, well, somebody hops on the call, they don't have the money, that's not worth my time anymore. It could be factually correct that it's not worth your time and you should be canceling that call, but it shouldn't be an emotional decision. Like, that person doesn't deserve my time. That type of energy is just not going to do well when you then have a call with somebody who's like in that gray zone, right? And then you're going to lean more towards the annoyance, and then you're just going to scare them away, right? And that's invisible. It's an invisible cost that is, it could really be driving a lot of the lack of growth for you. And so I really would be worried, watching this closely to make sure it doesn't happen. So that's the second stage. And then the third stage, which again builds on top of that, is avoidance, right? So, and this is more when you kind of things start to really kind of break down because you stop caring like completely. The first two, you kind of stop caring as much, right? Because arrogance is like, that's, I got this, it's good. Annoyance is kind of like, not only do I got this, but I'm annoyed when people don't understand, and like, I'm the best. Um, because you're putting a lot of work in, maybe you're not getting a lot out, so you kind of have to brainwash yourself into thinking that, right? Um, and the third stage is avoidance, right? So it's like I got this, and they're annoying, and now they're so annoying that I'm not even going to put myself in that position anymore completely, right? So they start over canceling calls and judging people based on limited information, right? Like, oh, this person wrote this on the call, on the form before the call, so I'm going to definitely assume that this person is not going to be good, right? um, or they start taking too many days off because they don't want the pressure anymore, right? Going on vacations, blowing their money, right, that they made. And then ultimately they stop doing the basics and running their own business, right? The basics that got them there, they stopped doing them. And well, surprise, surprise, a few months later, they're no longer making the money they were making, right? I wonder why. So, and by the way, this is normal to go through this, right? The biggest thing, and this is what I'm going to get into here, is you don't have to fall into that. Like, the reason why this happens usually is because people get stagnant, right? The progress is stalled, and that's understandable. But acting this way and having this happen because of it, it's not like a must, right? You can't control it. So basically, the best way to fix it is you want to stay longer in each stage, right? Especially stage one. Like, you wanna try to avoid going to stage 2 and 3 as much as possible to give yourselves time to fix this, right? Um, so like, try not to become annoyed, just stay in arrogance, use that confidence to try to fix things. And if you're already an annoyance, like, you might be annoyed but still show up to the calls and do the best you can. You know what I mean? Like, the worst thing you can do is like just not even do anything, right? That's when you just don't care anymore. So if you can stay in these ones, is better, right? If you have to go to kind of fall prey to these. But what you want to do is check yourself, right? Go back to the basics, like understand why you're acting this way, why are you falling into this pattern, and then from that analyze like what's happening in your mind, right? Why are you changing your approach? If you do definitely need a break, well, add a day a week where you don't work, right? Or take a vacation. That's okay. But don't let the ego come in and destroy your process and your progress. um, and you fall trapped to your own ego, right? You start believing your own story. That's very not helpful. um, because and the main reason why these 3 stages happen is usually because coaches lose vision, or they have been stagnant for too long, right? So now they made it to 10, 20K, so they lose the purpose of getting to 100K, because people say they want to get to 100K, but like, you don't need to. Like, if you're making 20K, like, it's not a bad life, it's actually pretty good compared to a lot of people. Like, 6 figures is not that common, especially in business. um 6 figures a year, right? So it's not too bad. So you need a very strong reason, a vision, to get to 100K per month, or else it's not going to happen. Or if you've been trying to get there and you kind of get discouraged, you might go into these stages as well. You might even have a pre-stage here, which is depression, let's say. um, just to fall into the thing, I probably would call it apathy, right? You start with apathy, although this is more apathy. Avoidance is apathy, but let's call it depression, right? You feel sad, basically. Um, then you go into arrogance, right? So it's like a trigger before. So this is pretty much it, right? The reason why I'm sharing this is because you might have gotten some of these traits in your life, right? And so what I would encourage you is to clean this up. And remember, like, the only reason why you're feeling this way and you're doing this is because you're stagnant, right? You're not making progress. So if that's the case, fix it, right? Find a solution. Or you lose vision, right? You don't have a purpose to keep going anymore, right? So you kind of just start falling to this. So that's pretty much it. Check your ego, and you got this. Let's make it happen, and have an amazing week. And yeah, hope this was helpful. So if it was, please subscribe below if you're a coach who wants to get to 50K per month, and let's make it happen. Talk soon.